Kim, and welcome to Esotouric's podcast, You Can't Eat the Sunshine, for the week of January 26, 2015. Join us this week as we talk with Donald Spivack, former Deputy Chief of Operations and Policy for the Community Redevelopment Agency of Los Angeles, about Bunker Hill's Grand Avenue and its multiple reinventions over the past 4 decades. We'll also visit with Jon Christensen, editor of Boom, a journal of California, to learn about the motivations that power this most California-centric publication. So stay tuned.
You can't eat the sunshine, but you can make a beeline for the best of the coastline. La 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 la. Skid Row, Solano Canyon, the Doria, and Pico Union, the long-lost neighborhood called Hermina, between South Pass and Highland Park, Grand Central Park. It is divine. You can't eat the sunshine, but it's a gold mine of fabulous oddities like Brewshare's Dairy, Angeles Abbey, Bob's Big Boy, in Downey Forest Lawn Cemetery. You can't eat the sunshine, but make a beeline for la la la. You can't eat the sunshine.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for listening to our podcast, You Can't Eat the Sunshine, for the week of January 26th, 2015. Happy New Year, Kim. This episode will have interviews. We'll have our usual 2 interviews. For interview 1, Donald Spivack. Donald Spivack is former Deputy Chief of Policy and Operations at the Community Redevelopment Agency of Los Angeles. This is a very long way of saying he has been around the block. There's nothing you can tell him about downtown. And once again, he will tell it like it is. He will take us by the hand and lead us down the path. The path today is Grand Avenue on Old Bunker Hill. Second guest, Jon Christensen. Jon Christensen, amongst many other things, which we'll get into in the proper introduction. At the end of this introduction, Jon Christensen is editor of Boom, a journal of California. And we're going to be talking to him about Boom and being an Angelino and a Californian and an editor of said journal and the editorial directions and motivations behind said journal and how much fun it is for him to get to be that guy. So Kim, the Pishka Maven, please bring us up to speed.
Oh yeah, there's a Pishka. It's a digital tip jar. It's associated with this podcast. We fixed the link, folks. Thank you. And if you like what we do and you'd like to be supportive in some small way, we are so grateful for the contributions of our listeners. It helps cover the cost of gasoline and snack foods and cups of joe to keep me functioning while Richard runs me all over the Southland looking for fascinating people to talk to for you to listen to. Never obligatory, always appreciated. We thank you for your support.
Thank you, Kim. Okay, good. So let's move into the closely watched train section. We're gonna Kim, back into focus, darling. Everything is well. So let's move into closely watched trains. So first on our
list, we had
list,
a cat who was freaking out. I had to give him a very stern look.
Okay, a cat who has 27 followers on Instagram.
All cats.
Obviously looking to boost his internet presence right now. Okay, so Kim, last week we were giving the Charles Bukowski bus tour. We were heading west on 3rd Street, as we always do.
Into the Viking District. Yeah, you know, there's 2 things I look out for out the window as we do that little bit of the journey through what we call Jane Land, where Jane Cooney Baker, who was the older woman who taught Charles Bukowski how to be a man, where the 2 of them lived together in a bunch of really crummy apartments and got into lots of trouble. And there's 2 things I look out for. Well, I look for 3 things, actually. I look for the Super at Light Church. Yeah. I look for the open garage bays where someone has a collection of really cool vintage gas station signage.
Right.
You know, which is a little hard to see, but, you know, it's always there. And I look for the Royal Viking Motel sign, and it has been changed. Beautiful neon slab sign. Very, very austere, but fantastic, gorgeous typography. And there are 2 signs. There's actually one around the corner on Figueroa as well. It's been taken over by something called Pod Inn. And they scraped off the neon, and they painted it orange, and they put their crummy logo and some Korean lettering on it. And I flipped out on the bus, Richard.
Yeah, you did.
I flipped out on the bus. And later I had a moment to reflect, and I said, once we were Vikings, now we're merely pod people. And I guess that's what we've become. There really needs to be some protection for historic signage in this city. There are ways of doing this.
It's called a historic cultural monument application.
Yeah, but I mean, who thought to do this for the Royal Viking, this incredibly cheap, crummy motel in on the edge of Koreatown?
Well, obviously, preservationists don't have enough poor habits that happen to manifest themselves in the Westlake District. No one's taking recreational drugs with prostitutes in the Royal Viking who writes HCMs, and I'm going to go ahead and say that's okay.
And yet, at the same time, if someone had been in the Royal Viking, now the pod in, and had looked out the window, over the shoulder of this completely cracked out hooker, and said, oh my God, they're ruining that sign, and had gone out there, in their undershorts and said, hey man, I don't know what you're doing, but can I call the Museum of Neon Art? I think I have a phone. I didn't lose my phone yet. Let me call them, and can you wait like 20 minutes and save the sign? Maybe the sign would have been saved. I think it's astonishing. The sign appears to have been gone for over a month, and no. Okay, the cat is completely flipping out. We have to stop putting him on Instagram. It's giving him a big head. Anyway, it's really sad. It's a beautiful, beautiful sign. And now if you go around the corner, the Figueroa side, there actually is still a hint of a Viking helmet at the top of the sign. These nincompoops obliterated the Royal Viking portion, but they left the Viking helmet. So it is the Ghost Viking of Koreatown, and we raise a glass of tea to the Ghost Viking who we loved and obviously didn't love enough to write a landmarking monument for.
Kim, we have to move on. Our good friend John Buntin, who is an accomplished journalist in the field of public policy, has once again knocked it out of the park. He's written a nice article for Slate magazine, and this article...
It's a website.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Okay. Slate, the website. Great article about the myths of gentrification. I don't want to get too into this because it's pretty in-depth and I need to keep moving, but good piece. Not a lot of talk of downtown Los Angeles, mostly eastern seaboard cities, which is, of course, his emotional focus when he's not thinking about Los Angeles. But it's a great piece, and everyone should check it out.
Yeah, and it's really obviously, as I think was the intention, annoying a lot of people who are dealing with hypergentrification, especially on the East Coast, because even if what it's saying is true, that poor neighborhoods stay poor, and that all of the things that people say about gentrification it's really limited to a very small number of communities on the coast. For the people who are dealing with losing all of their small businesses in their communities, it seems like gentrification to them, and they don't want to be told gentrification doesn't exist. There are some really bad things happening, whatever they actually are. We probably need some new terms to discuss them and to fight them.
Great. Okay. So, Kim, just a quick call out. There was an article. There's a nice little article in the LA Times. It surrounds Council District CD member Gil Cedillo. Yeah, I know. I'm trying to say it properly. Gil Cedillo represents Council District number 1. I know he represents 1. I was just trying to form a sentence that said council member for District 1. And there we go. Gil Cedillo. Article is about what's the best way for grassroots activists to affect positive social change through changes in public policy.
Yeah, and the question is, are you supposed to have a bunch of really cordial meetings with your councilman, or should you have a die-in front of their condo downtown when they say when they're running for election that they support a bike lane on Figueroa, and then when they're actually elected, they don't support the bike lane, even though they used your bike shop to have a bunch of press events while they were running? You can see why you would burn some bridges that way. So it's a really interesting piece, because obviously most of the people who cordially go and sit at the table with their councilman are big money developer types, and they're not really bike activists. And yet at the same time, apparently these die-ins have gotten some attention, and now some of the bike activists are supposedly speaking privately and cordially with the councilman. So we'll see what happens. I think that, there's definitely, it is hard to take on City Hall, literally, and it can be incredibly brutal, but it is sometimes the only way to get your voice heard, especially when your voice doesn't come with a big checkbook attached. So, I like to see people in the community getting out and doing performative public policy challenges. I think it's healthy, and I think it's educational for the youth of today. And what do you think, Richard?
Okay, I think we'll give this a 30-second Richard's guide to affecting positive social change through changes in public policy. So, 1, renounce all the fruits of your efforts. Okay, just you wake up, fall out of bed. I'm doing this, and I divorce myself from any attachments of happiness or sadness surrounding the results of my effort. I'm just simply engaging in this effort because it's the right thing to do. Secondly, don't call in the media or start using social media till it's necessary. Really, goodwill quickly disappears with bad press and bad social media, and as few people have control over the media in general, and no one has control over social media. Really, you want goodwill, so really try and maintain goodwill, and that usually means trying to have civilized conversations where you're not going against what you said you were going to do at the meeting by tweeting about it.
And yet at the same time, I'm reminded that, we reached out to CD1 numerous times once we heard what was going on with the big section of the Zaha Madre under the development in Chinatown, and we just got completely stonewalled, and they destroyed this artifact.
Right.
At which point, we definitely began posting in social media what a terrible thing this was, because we felt like the councilman didn't want to hear from us, and this was the way to be heard.
Right. I think, Kim, what the scenarios I'm looking at are you have upcoming challenges and there's no crisis, and you can have calm meetings with deputies or other policymakers attached to bureaucracies within the city of Los Angeles. The Zaha Madre situation was already done. I mean, we weren't going to change anything when they announced what they were going to do, even though they hadn't done it. So we were just going to social media.
Well, no, you called them and you told them, hey, we know someone who's really, really good with old bricks. You should have them on site to help if you're actually going to move this. And he wasn't there. And they broke the Zaha Madre. Okay.
So we're going to move on, Kim.
Yeah.
So, renounce all the fruits of your labors when engaging in effecting positive social change through changes in public policy.
Amen.
So Chris let me get the article out here. Chris Nichols has written a nice little piece.
A list?
He's come up with a list of 12 endangered spaces in Los Angeles County. Kim, I think this was very much in the same vein of thought of your 25 for 2014 2 weeks ago. So let me just quickly go through these. I've included the link. The Chase Bank on Sunset.
These are all endangered?
These are all structures that are endangered. This is the Chase Bank location of the former site of the Garden of Allah. It's now a bank. It's actually at the intersection of Los Angeles and West Hollywood, still in the footprint of Los Angeles. Warner Pacific Theater on Hollywood Boulevard. It's been closed for almost 2 years, and real problems. Arturo's in Harbor City. I'm not familiar with Arturo's, but it's an old case study house.
No, it's a restaurant.
We're gonna go. Oh, we've seen it. We've been past Arturo's.
It's a diner.
Maybe that's our next lunch in Wilmington. We'll be in Harbor City.
No, it's closed.
Oh,
It's being marketed as a development.
oh, they closed
site.
it.
Richard, stop it. You're just reading this for the first time. You looked at the pictures.
Yeah, well, I know Rockhaven. I know the Teacup in Long Beach. I know Hollenbeck Presbyterian Church in Boyle Heights. It's Hollenbeck. What's happening at Hollenbeck Presbyterian Church is a real problem. Okay. I know Parker Center. We've all written letters. Okay, I'm glad. Dog and Cat Hospital, West Hollywood, Melrose Triangle. I know that building. That's a big building. Women's Club of Hollywood on La Brea. Yeah. Okay. Fox.
Is that word internecine? Is that the word I'm looking for?
Yeah, internecine. Yeah.
The women from that Hollywood Women's Club are not getting along in the building, and its future are suffering because of that.
Right. Fox Theater in Inglewood, that's a great theater. Fifth Church of Christian Scientists in Hollywood, that's on Hollywood Boulevard. That's a great building. And last but not least, LACMA. William Pereira is on my mind.
Chris Nichols is cheating with that LACMA picture. LACMA hasn't looked like that since 1979. But yeah, that's a really great idea. Why doesn't the new LACMA plan just scrape away everything but the Pereira campus? That would be a great clean slate. I'm for that.
Okay, so that's Chris's list. It's very much in the vein with your list from 2 weeks earlier, 25 for 2014. We'll list both of them. Very exciting. Okay, Kim, late breaking news out of the Southwest Museum for American Indian Heritage.
Yeah, and kind of exciting. I mean, Los Angeles has really failed the Southwest Museum. First museum of the city of LA, founded by Charles Fletcher Lummis, that great Arroyo citizen, our city librarian for a while, and just fascinating Angelino all around. The institution and its collection were passed into the hands of the new, at the time, Autry Museum for Western Heritage, and unfortunately the Autry just, although they have invested some money in stabilizing the building to a certain extent and in making sure that the really incredible collection of American Indian artifacts that were collected by Lummis and his associates is freeze-dried and put in appropriate boxes. It's all been moved off-site, and the space hasn't been open in years, and it's really a problem for Northeast LA because they've lost this incredible asset that they thought was going to be improved when this partnership happened. So, there's a community group that's drawn up their own plan for what the Southwest Museum could be. They've tried to go to the city, they've tried to go to the Autry, no one's gotten anywhere, and now we have a white knight riding into town in the form of the National Trust for Historic Preservation, and they made an announcement last week that they're here, and for the next 18 months they're going to be bringing all of the interested parties to the table and talking about options. Self-sustaining, fundraising, accessibility, usage options for the Southwest Museum, and that's super exciting because it is definitely time for an outside entity to come, get everyone talking, and do some analyses that aren't based on just so much bad will and failed opportunity that has happened in the past. It's time for a fresh start, and I'm hopeful. I'm really glad they've added it to a list of national treasures, and there aren't a lot of structures on that list, and I really think this is a great start to treating the Southwest Museum the way it ought to have been treated, and hopefully a new century is on its way, and it's going to be a great century for Charles Fletcher Lummis's fantastic museum.
I can't help but think of Lummis House.
Right. Also, there's so much wrong with Northeast LA. All this investment is coming in, all this hyper-gentrification, if you will, and the incredible cultural assets of the community are getting lost in that shuffle. I don't expect real estate developers to come in and say, oh, I'm so excited to be, building an apartment block next to the Gold Line, I'm going to give $1 million to Lummis House. That's just not going to happen. But there needs to be some focus on these cultural assets, and Lummis House is kind of dangling out on a wire now because it's between stewards. The Historical Society is going to be leaving. The Occidental College hopes to be coming in, and we're really very, very hopeful, especially with all this new national focus on Lummis and on the Highland Park neighborhood, that these structures are very close together and they basically are sisters in spirit, that things will get better and more clear for what's going to happen with Lummis House in the future.
Perfect. Okay, we'll keep everyone posted. Remember, the mind is universal. So, Kim, just in passing, DNA did a nice little piece, DNA being design and architecture, which is a regular KCRW feature produced and hosted by Frances Anderton. She did a nice little Well, can you just start quoting Tom Main from this piece she did, and Ken Bernstein?
Well, sure. I mean, she did a piece about the unexpected demolition of Ray Bradbury's home in Cheviot Hills by the architect Tom Main's representatives. Main and his wife bought it. They want to build a home there in the future, a few years down the line, and so they knocked it down really quick, probably because of this new city ordinance that would have required, if they had waited, 2 weeks, would have required notification to the neighborhood, and someone could have written a landmark application or tried to buy the house out from under them because they didn't want them to knock the house down and have it be a vacant lot for 3 years. And, Tom Main basically told her that he lives in the moment and he doesn't really care about old houses, and, that's fine. Other people do. And what's interesting from the point of view of the Office of Historic Resources and Ken Bernstein is that somehow, and although this would have had no protective power, I should say that at the outset, but somehow when Survey LA was out looking at Cheviot Hills and putting down a list of important architectural structures and cultural assets, the fact that Ray Bradbury had lived in this house for 50 years somehow was not mentioned by any of the community informants who Survey LA met. And
because they didn't meet with anyone but the neighborhood council, and they didn't actually do outreach, because there's like 2 people on staff at the Office of Historic Resources that do this, and they're understaffed, and the Office of the Mayor needs to give them more money. And it's ridiculous that the HPOZ, Historic Preservation Overlay Zone for Cheviot Hills, was rejected because there are too many bad houses, okay? This is my neighborhood, okay? It's ridiculous. Okay, it pisses me off to hear that Cheviot Hills doesn't qualify to be an HPOZ. Whoever is in charge of this, the neighborhood and the council member need to come back to the table and reapply. Okay, I dare you to drive down Motor Avenue and tell me this is not an architecturally intact, integral neighborhood. I dare you to walk up the backside from the west, out of Castle Heights into Cheviot Hills and tell me this is not an important architecturally intact neighborhood. Okay, and we're done with that. Okay, is all ridiculous. And I know the people that live around there, and it is impossible to conceive of that there's going to be an empty, abandoned lot at that intersection for the next 4 years.
Well, get used to it. And now that Tom Main is responding to all this negative publicity, he suddenly has this proposal, which I'm sure he came up with, 2 days before he had to go on the air. Oh, I'm going to build this wall. My house is just a garden. You're not going to see my house. My house is going to be invisible, but I'm going to build this wall, and I'm going to inscribe it with the names of Ray Bradbury's books. Are you freaking kidding? Okay, that's probably not possible with the zoning for that house, but really? Couldn't you have just bought a vacant lot somewhere, or like an old Taco Bell?
Okay. So, we're moving on, Kim. It's very upsetting. So, the back to Downey,
Taco Bell.
Back to Downey, there's a National Register house on Paramount at 3rd.
Across from Foxy's.
Across from
the former Foxy's.
The former Foxy's, which is a beautiful mid-century modern A-frame Scandinavian restaurant now turned brew pub. Okay, so the Rives Mansion is 1885, 1886. It was built by Rives, who was a judge. There is a milestone marker at the corner that shows it's 17 miles to downtown Los Angeles.
Or 12 or something?
I think it's 13. Yeah.
I have a photo of it.
Yeah, but there's literally a mile marker there, and he of course is a judge at the Superior County judge, and he would drive up to the courthouse, however many times judges sit in chambers back in those days, probably 3 or 4 times a week during the season. So Kim and I, you and I first came into consciousness around this house because it was the last home of the Swedish Vecco blog.
Right. 1947, Elizabeth Short was murdered in January, Black Dahlia case, and there was another murder the following month that some of the journalists thought might have been related because it was also a mutilation murder, a severing, and this involved a linotype operator named Otto Parziegla, who flipped out when his boss called him a dirty German while they were fighting over the condition of the linotype machine. And he went into some sort of fugue state because he had been in a Nazi concentration camp and they had put him through...
Because he was a Pole.
He was a Pole. He wasn't a German. And they put him through these mock executions, and he used to just go dark. And I guess in this particular case, well, this is what he said anyway. I choose to believe him because it's so insane. He went dark, and when he came to, he had beaten his boss to death, Alfred Hodge.
So this has to do with the Rives Mansion because...
It's a wonderful story. You're going to stop me? No. Okay, so Alfred Hodge is dead. He cuts him into pieces. It's a big scandal. The dream killer, he goes away for a long time. Has nothing to do with the Rives Mansion, except that the Swedish Veckoblad, which was the Swedish newspaper...
After losing its publisher.
Lost its publisher, but it was a popular paper, so some other Swede picked it up, and at the end of the day, it ended up publishing out of the Rives Mansion. And I saw a photograph some blogger took back in the 2000s, where they kind of peeped into the garage behind the house where they have this tall water tower. It's magnificent, and there was a linotype machine and a paper cutter back there. So,
and the Swedish Veckoblog's last address, which is you can find on the internet through a late White Pages listing, is the address of the Rives Mansion.
Yeah, so I don't know if it's the same paper cutter, but you'd think you could probably clean something like that. It'd probably be a pretty good tool. You might not want to get rid of it when you're taking over, the assets of the Swedish Veckoblad. So that was kind of interesting. And we didn't tell that, though, to the people who were inhabiting.
We did.
We did?
We did, immediately.
Oh, okay.
That's why they let us in.
Oh, yeah, they're true crime geeks. Well, please, go on, Richard.
Well, so, this, 2009, we approach them and say, hey, you should let our bus tour visit at the end of our bus tour before we go over to Harvey's Broiler, because they hadn't reopened yet. So we had a little, so we still had a little wiggle room.
Right, and this was our South Los Angeles California culture tour, not a crime tour at all. And Lauren Bowman, who was living there, was really nice and was super interested.
Strangely nice.
Well, she was nice, and she was very interested in true crime and had a lot of questions for us about the other work we do, and she invited us to come, and so we were able to visit and have a tour and go all through the house, 50 people, and she had some of the contestants in the Miss Downey competition were there wearing their sashes because she used to have these slumber parties upstairs. And listen, I have to say, I admire Lauren Bowman because, yes, she's serving federal time now, but when she came to Downey, she was using her own name, and she went to the church and she told the minister, I had some problems in Texas. And she never pretended to be anyone other than who she was. And she started her real estate business. And she had this house, which she was paying an exorbitant amount of rent for. And she had a lot of public events there. And she was doing a lot of charitable and religious things. And, she was also operating a pyramid scheme. And that's what she eventually, went to prison for. But she did the same thing in Texas, and all you had to do was Google her name. And when they talked to the minister after she got caught for, hustling people in the community, he's like, oh, well, everyone deserves a second chance. So she was gone, and we haven't been back to the house since because, we don't have a relationship with the new people who came in. Same owners, but different tenants. A gentleman named Ralph Verdugo from the community had been running a bar in downtown L.A. The L.A. Brewing Company has a terrible reputation. They don't pay their employees, so I was a little concerned about it when he left the L.A. Brewing Company and moved into the Rives Mansion and started redeveloping it as a steakhouse. And just in the last couple of weeks, it's broken that he is now at terrible odds with his landlords. He claims they haven't paid their mortgage in 60 months, and the property is heading into foreclosure. If that's the case, I don't know why they still had control of the property. They say he intentionally delayed the development of the steakhouse because he has a right of first refusal to purchase the property should they lose it. Everybody's screaming at each other. They're saying that the house has been gutted and is destroyed and there's all this damage. I don't know. But it was not a steakhouse last time we saw it, and it was never intended to be a steakhouse. So
beautiful house.
Beautiful woodwork.
Ballroom on the fourth. Yeah, there was...
Third floor,
yeah.
Yeah, the kids were using it as a music room. Very, very special property. And, it's just been a nightmare because there have been zoning issues. It's a mansion. It's not Foxy's.
No.
And I don't know what's going to happen to it, and I don't know why a bank would let someone be in arrears 5 years.
Because the bank has 500 other properties in the same situation. There's just no consciousness of it.
Right, and what this comes down to at the end is, National Register means nothing. It's just a feather in your cap. No one is going to come and knock on your door and say, I'm here to check on your National Register property. And that is really a shame. It's a shame that something this precious that really belongs to the community and has survived over a century in really good shape is now,
We'll see.
What it is.
We'll see. We're looking for some feedback from the Downey Conservancy on this point. Okay, Kim, we need to move into upcoming events. Sunday, February 22, the monthly Lava Sunday Salon is back. Dr. Paul Koudnaris is going to be talking about demonic cats, of which we have no small share of here in this house. And I'm wondering if our friendly automata maker will come to that. I think there's a lot of overlap, and that might give him some ideas about his presentation.
I would like to see an automata of demonic cats.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's going to have that finished in 2 weeks. These things just take about 7 years to conceive and construct.
Okay, so that's Sunday, February 22. RSVP. It's RSVP only, and they now start at 2, not noon, and it's at Library Bar. That's a new location. It's on the website. Okay. Our next forensic science seminar, we just got through our last one with Ed Nordskog. It was knocked it out of the park. Our next one is Hot Lead and Hot Leads, Forensic Firearm and Gang Communication Analysis.
You like
that is a very long and wonderful alliterative title, and it is a roundabout way of saying Mike Kelly, who is a firearms inspector for the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, will be taking us through the basics of ballistics. That was alliteration. And we'll also have both these speakers are return speakers. We'll also have Nick Guskos. He's with the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. He's going to be talking about investigating gang homicides, specifically in the sheriff's in the correctional facilities run by the Sheriff's Department, which is a specialized subset of homicide investigation and requires special tools and demeanors, techniques, a lot of experience under your belt and some cool thinking. And he's just the best. So we're super excited about that. And I think at this point we can go into the interview introduction. So we're gonna interview Donald first. So I'll introduce Jon first. Jon Christensen. Jon Christensen, amongst many other things, he is faculty at UCLA. He is a principal at Stamen Design and is heads up their office in Los Angeles. Our last interview with him was about Stamen. This interview with him will be about Boom, a journal of California. He is editor, and he's going to talk about all the ideas that manifest as editorial policy for Boom, which is a lot of fun. He's a great guy. He's one of my favorite people, and that's good. Our first interview is with Donald Spivack. Donald Spivack is legend on this. I think only Brian Kaiser comes close to how many times he's been interviewed. He's just because he's so damn smart.
Well, you haven't hit the bottom of the well with him yet.
No, he's okay. So we're going to talk to Donald about Grand Avenue. This interview was done the same morning as the interview we published with him a few months back about the pedestrian bridges on the western side of Bunker Hill around First and Figueroa.
I'm afraid the coral tree is doing even worse now, Richard.
The coral tree is dead.
At least Napoli says it's a hazard and someone needs to come and take it away.
So this is a continuation of the vision of Calvin Hamilton. So this interview about Grand Avenue and Bunker Hill is Calvin Hamilton's notions around rebuilding the core of downtown and separating pedestrian and vehicular traffic. And as we go through Life Kim, I'm beginning to understand that William Pereira's office and his master plan work and Calvin Hamilton's master plan works it's hard to tell where one stops and the other begins, and so I think we owe a great deal to how downtown is now and how it is becoming. And when I say becoming, I mean the Grand Avenue plan, the county plan which is rebuilding Grand Avenue, the county plan to build a green path along Spring Street from Union Station to the core of the Civic Center. These are all ideas that Calvin Hamilton and William Pereira kind of put on the table and started implementing. Pereira in Irvine, Hamilton as the principal city planner for Los Angeles, and his.
So basically, all this cool futuristic stuff was supposed to happen in 1970, and now we're getting this kind of 40 years later masticated version thereof that everybody is really unhappy with because it's been so long coming.
I'm not going to say masticated, but it's taken 40 years, and I think it would have looked different had they implemented it 20 years ago. That said, we will leave it. We will leave. That's all food for thought, and Donald will take us by the hand and talk to us about the ideas behind Grand Avenue back in the late '60s when it was destroyed and rebuilt, and the path it's going on, and the ideas behind that path, which are 40 years old. And so, let's take it away with my interview with Donald. Donald, we're here. We're at 3rd and Grand. We're in front of the Wells Fargo Center. And I want you to introduce yourself, first of all, and then you're going to give us a history of this street as a result of the redevelopment project in the early 60s.
Okay. Yes, my name is Don Spivack. I'm formerly the Deputy Chief of Operations for the Los Angeles Community Redevelopment Agency. And we are standing on Grand Avenue, a little bit south of 3rd Street. Grand Avenue is the primary street on Bunker Hill. There are a number of streets that border Bunker Hill or that are on the flats on either side of Bunker Hill, Flower Street and Figueroa on the west side, Hill Street on the east side. But Grand Avenue is the primary street that runs north and south all the way through the length of Bunker Hill and then penetrates on the north up to Chinatown and on the south into the financial district of downtown. So it's the most continuous street in Bunker Hill. It was envisioned for many, many years as being kind of the grand boulevard of downtown Los Angeles. And so there was a lot of emphasis on urban design for Grand Avenue, including making Grand Avenue into a 2-level street. The idea being that the upper level would be for pedestrians and primarily automobile drop-offs, and then parking and truck access would be on the lower level. So Grand Avenue itself is actually a bridge that sits on top of a lower level street that many people don't even know exist. If you see the light wells that are in the center of the street, such as the one that's between 3rd and 4th Street, they are to provide some light and to provide some air circulation from the truck level that's below. And as I say, most of the parking access is from below as well. So the concept was to separate pedestrian and freight traffic on Bunker Hill by making it a 2-level street.
And this has echoes back to Calvin Hamilton and his interest in segregating different types of traffic.
Right. Cal Hamilton, who was the planning director for many, many years in Los Angeles, that was one of his concepts, was to separate pedestrian and vehicular traffic. And so on Grand Avenue, the idea was that the upper level would be primarily pedestrians, although it is a major street, but that all the truck traffic and people going to parking garages would be directed to the lower level. Grand Avenue did become the primary location for most of the commercial office development that took place on Bunker Hill. And Bunker Hill was conceptualized as being a major office destination for Los Angeles. In the 1950s, a lot of businesses were moving out of downtown Los Angeles because the buildings were obsolete. They could have free parking in the suburbs, and so the idea was to develop a high-density but well-parked new office complex on Bunker Hill to replace what had become a very derelict one-time residential neighborhood that really couldn't be rehabilitated. The condition of the buildings were beyond that. So it made sense to create a new downtown and to put it on Bunker Hill from the perspective of trying to retain businesses in downtown that were otherwise leaving the city of Los Angeles. And from that perspective, it was very successful. It got the major banks that were moving to the suburbs to stop doing that and to move into new buildings on Bunker Hill. Crocker Bank was one of the first to build a major office complex here. That's now the Wells Fargo Center. Security Pacific built one a block off of Grand Avenue, which is now the headquarters for Bank of America. Subsequently, a number of other banks and real estate developers put together the California Plaza project, which does house many financial institutions. The last major office building to go up on Bunker Hill was one of the towers of California Plaza. There are still a couple of parcels that are left for development around 1st Street at Grand Avenue, and there is an approved plan for a mixed-use development that would occupy the properties that are across Grand Avenue from the Walt Disney Concert Hall.
Right. I'm just going to ask you this question. It didn't occur to me till we started talking. The parcel that the Broad Museum sits on. Mm-hmm. Could you give us the name? Do you remember the name of that parcel? Is it LR? Is it?
I think the Broad Museum is on parcel L.
Okay. Parcel L, as I remember, was a parcel that the CRA had offered in several instances. I remember back in the 70s, the CRA did a feasibility report on moving the central library, and they offered lot parcel L as a replacement
The CRA offered lots of parcels as a replacement for the library. The ultimate decision was to build a library next to the library,
Right.
which ended up making the most sense, and that's what happened. But Parcel L was conceived of being, after the library deal, part of a very large complex of 3 residential towers that would be on Parcel L and Parcel M. Parcel M was split into 2 pieces.
Right.
The first of those towers was built, the Grand Promenade Apartments.
880 West 1st Street.
No, this is the one that's 251 South Grand Avenue.
Okay.
Right. And so that was the first of the 3 buildings. Subsequently, the remaining 2 parcels on Grand Avenue and the parcels on the east side of Grand Avenue, which were parcels Q and W, were assembled and put into a major development proposal that Related Companies was the winning bidder on. That came through and got all of its approvals right about the time that the recession, the most recent recession, was setting in. And so they've had a lot of difficulty moving that project forward. They're now repackaging it a little bit and going back to some of the original designs. But they did split off 2 pieces. One became the Broad Museum, and the second one became the residential project that Arquitectonica designed immediately next to it, that is filling in between the Grand Promenade and the Broad Museum, and that's nearly finished now. So the west side of Grand Avenue is essentially complete all the way through Bunker Hill, and the parcels on the east side running down the hill to Hill Street are yet to be developed. The only remaining parcel after that hasn't been developed is at the corner of 4th and Hill Streets, which was conceived as being a 3rd office tower as part of the California Plaza complex.
Right. This is where the goats are sometimes, because it's a grassy knoll, just to give people some orientation. Because even I was a bit lost when you started talking about 4th and Hill for a second.
And a very steep one, which means the goats are a whole lot more successful at trimming the brush on it than almost anything else does. But that was part of California Plaza. California Plaza was conceived of as being a very large mixed-use development. It was the largest single development proposal on Bunker Hill. Originally to have 3 office buildings, 3 residential buildings, a hotel, and the Museum of Contemporary Art.
Yes.
Along with, at that time, was to be the Bela Lewitsky Dance Studio. The dance studio was never built. That was to be under the 3rd tower. The 2 office towers were complete. 2 of the 3 residential buildings were completed. The 3rd became part of the Colburn School, which is now a music conservatory. It's located on the hill, which fulfills another element of Grand Avenue, which was to make it an important cultural hub for Los Angeles. That begins outside of Bunker Hill with the Los Angeles Cathedral at Temple Street, the Music Center north of 1st Street, the Walt Disney Hall south of 1st Street, the Broad Museum, the Museum of Contemporary Art, and the library anchoring the south end at 5th and Grand.
I think you did. Oh, you did it. You gave us all the buildings. That was very good. You promised you'd just mention, since we ended on California Plaza, about Angel's Flight.
Okay. Angel's Flight historically was a funicular that connected, it was one of several, that connected the residential community at the top of Bunker Hill with downtown Los Angeles, which was Hill Street, Broadway, Spring Street, roughly between 1st and 4th. The funicular was located at 3rd and Hill Street and came up to what is roughly now Olive Street.
Yeah.
It was dismantled in the 1960s to provide for the reconstruction of several buildings, including Angeles Plaza, the largest senior housing complex that is federally funded in the United States, and was reassembled about 20 years later. And it's gone through some problems operationally. Right now it's shut down, and hopefully we'll be able to figure out a way to get it back in operation. But it was repositioned at the south end of Angeles Plaza to connect into the public open space of California Plaza, which the grade of which had to be adjusted so that it met the angle of Angel's Flight. So the historic cars were totally restored. The right-of-way itself was new constructed. The electrical systems were all upgraded. The original head house was retained and rehabilitated, and the gate structure at both ends are original.
Perfect. You did it. Donald, I want to thank you. This is a great walkthrough of Grand Avenue.
Thank you. My pleasure.
My name is Cece Perry, and I'm in Max Bloom's Cafe Noir, and you're listening to You Can't Eat the Sunshine.
John, we're back. We're back in this great corner studio overlooking Abbot Kinney. I want you to properly introduce yourself and tell us what it is we're going to talk about with you for a bit.
Well, I'm Jon Christensen, and I teach at UCLA in the History Department and the Institute of the Environment and Sustainability, in addition to being a partner at Stamen Design, and the editor of Boom, Journal of California, which is a quarterly magazine published by UC Press.
Okay, good. So that's what I want to talk to you about. Boom. So tell us, this is a great magazine. I love this. Tell us, this is the fall 2014. Tell us about this cover and the students.
Yeah, so this issue is about thinking with nature. So how do we think with nature, with things in nature, with plants and animals, the climate, genes, art and ideas about nature, for understanding nature and our world, also understanding ourselves. And as we were putting this issue together, I was up in San Francisco and stumbled upon a small exhibition there in a little hole in the wall. It was like a pop-up exhibition. It was just happening one night. It had these 3 artists in it, and I just thought, wow, there's this picture on the cover is by Noah Battle. He was a senior in high school in San Francisco, and this was part of a senior show for him and 2 other students. And it shows, this is a self-portrait, it shows Noah standing on a small square of grass in the middle of a big flat, looks like parking lot of pavement with a power plant and kind of cranes and such of the port behind him. And so it really, for me, captured this essence of what we're getting at when we talk about thinking with nature today in California, which is very different from, I think, the nature, the ideas of nature that John Muir left us with when he died 100 years ago, but which in some ways still conceptually really define California for us.
Good. Tell us, DJ Waldy wrote a little article for you, not a little one. Tell just so people look at this. I like Don. He's a good guy. So tell us about this.
Yeah, well, Don's one of our most amazing and remarkable and deep writers in California now, and so it's such an honor to have this essay, which is called "Nature's Haunted House." And it has photographs by the other senior whose work I've stumbled upon up in San Francisco. These beautiful evocative cutouts of animal shapes that are cut out from leaves and then are juxtaposed in settings around the city. What's wonderful about these 2 artists and their friend, the other senior, is that they're all freshmen at UCLA this year, so there's a connection with Los Angeles as well. And these photographs accompany just this beautiful meditation by Don about seeing nature in and around, where he has spent his whole life in Lakewood and Long Beach, and seeing nature in so many surprising ways in what we think of as the natural environment, but also what is really the built environment and the environment that we have made here and people. And it's in that way that I say, we still live in John Muir's California. I think conceptually he set up this California where people live in the cities There's the productive landscape of ranching and mining and farming, around them, and then there are the wilderness cathedrals of nature that we go to get away from that. And we still very much kind of live in that California still, but it's changing. We're seeing nature all across that spectrum, not just in the wilderness, but throughout the farms and ranches and the ways that we think about, the ecosystem services such as pollinators that make it possible for us to have the fruits and nuts that California, produces, but also nature in the city. And the other way around, we're seeing culture and cultural ideas being so important throughout that landscape and spectrum too, from the city to the wilderness. And I think Don's essay really beautifully gets to the heart of that.
Perfect. Give us, I think you've given us a very good editorial direction on this theme, but what are just some other things? So Boom has been published for a while, so there's obviously yeah, so there's some editorial direction. So other than that of nature, what do you like? Where are you looking to, what nooks and crannies are you looking to shine light on into?
So I tell all of our writers that what we want to do is host one of the most interesting, lively dinner party conversations in California once a quarter. Right. In the pages of the magazine, but also in online. We publish everything online and give access to everything online during the run of the magazine each quarter. In other media where we share, because we're interested in having as many readers as we can, for this beautiful work, the writing and the photography and in social media.
You want people to embed their location in social media when they're reading this.
Oh, of course, yeah, of course, and share it with us. Share a picture of yourself reading Boom in a place. And so we organize. We often organize issues around themes. We've done one on California and the world in California, on the future. We did one a year ago on the 100th anniversary of the Los Angeles Aqueduct, and where making the kind of pivot from that history to thinking about the next century of water in Los Angeles. And so we find that's a way to really focus the conversation, to focus the minds of our readers, to help provoke, inspire, sustain, an interesting conversation. Sometimes it's not conversations that we've started, like the 100th anniversary of the Los Angeles Aqueduct, but we can contribute something really substantive and beautiful, this evocative object of, the print magazine itself, to that conversation, but also all that we can do around it in other media and in events that we regularly hold. So we're looking at a lot of different, exciting possibilities of themes that we can address and, collaborate with others. We don't do really anything alone. We like to work with other organizations and people to, have those conversations, because we think it's really important that it, not just be in the magazine, but it also be, out there in the world, online and in social media, but also in real conversations. Yeah.
Excuse me, sip of tea. I all of a sudden was about to cough. Let's get to the brass tacks. This is a print magazine. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I want you to tell people where they can get a copy of this, either over their transom through subscription or at a newsstand.
Well, so the best place to get it is at boomcalifornia.com. And you can buy a single copy there or subscribe.
Very good.
Or come to one of our events.
Well, so okay. So, and how do they find? I guess they just friend you on Twitter.
They can do that, or they can follow us on Twitter at Boom California, or we're on Facebook at Boom California. Friend us there. Sign up for our mailing list at boomcalifornia.com. And all of our events are there. And what we do, what we usually do, is that anybody who attends one of our events gets a free copy of the current issue.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's a real pleasure.
My name is Badan Roy. I'm here at Cal State LA, and you're listening to You Can't Eat the Sunshine.
And we're done. I'd like to thank everyone for listening to our latest podcast of You Can't Eat the Sunshine for the week of January 26th, 2015. Happy New Year, Kim. Our guests this week were Donald Spivack. He is former Deputy Chief of Operations and Policy for the Los Angeles Community Redevelopment Agency, and also Jon Christensen. Amongst other things, he is editor of Boom, a journal of California. We want to hear from you. We really do. And so, Kim, tell us about the feedback loops.
We have them. They include such things as getting on our bus or coming to one of the lava events that Richard or I host. You can also send us an email at youcan'teatthesunshine@gmail.com or through the contact link at www.esotouric.com. You can also, we still don't have the iTunes feed fixed, Richard. I know you're trying. You're doing what you can. What I've done in the meantime is I've put the podcast on some of the other podcast hosting sites. So you'll be finding, if you listen through, Spreaker, you might find us there. So go look for the podcast. You might find us on SoundCloud. The newest episodes will be there as well. Good. Yeah. I'm not ponying up for a paid account, so we'll just have, 10 hours worth of stuff. But I'll just roll out the new ones. And eventually we will be back on iTunes if you're inclined to share the links or give us some reviews. We would be grateful for that.
Thank you, Kim. And again, I'm completely at the mercy of Apple. I'm completely at their mercy. I've submitted my request 2 weeks ago, and they said they were going to do it, and I'm hoping that it gets fixed.
You want me to tweet at someone?
No, okay. All right. So, Kim, you're going to bring us home. We are in the wrap-up of our podcast, and this is when you tell us about upcoming bus tours.
I can do that.
So, take it away. Take us home.
All right, we're wrapping up the month of January with The Birth of Noir, the James M. Cain tour of Hollywood, Skid Row, and Glendale. And listen, if you like film noir, you don't need me to tell you. You want to go to James M. Cain's Los Angeles, and that's what we're going to do. In February, we're doing the California Culture tour series, of which we discussed a little bit about South LA earlier. However, the South LA tour is not currently on the calendar because Irving Gill's Clark Estate, which is our longest stop on that tour, really important house, suffered some rain damage. So
they're going to reopen.
Yes, they're going to reopen, and we're going to be back doing that in August. Richard, it's fine. I'm just explaining. So if people are like, California Culture Tour is coming up, I want to do that South LA tour. One, we no longer go to the Rives Mansion. You know why. And we're not doing it in February. But what we are doing in February is 3 tours in this series. We're starting on February 7th with Boyle Heights in the San Gabriel Valley, the hidden histories of LA's melting pot singular. And there's some truly beautiful Monterey Park locations and some fascinating lore about Jews and social justice and Mollicons and fun in Boyle Heights. So interesting neighborhoods, a lot of synchronicities over 100 years of history, and I like that tour a lot. Very interesting. On Valentine's Day, we are returning a tour which has been on hiatus for quite a while, the Route 66 Road Trip, subtitled Roadside Architecture, Citrus, Drive-Ins, and Cemeteries. And that is a really lovely days out adventure, and you don't even have to go to Arizona to explore Route 66. We'll get you home in time for, an afternoon tipple. And we'll also go to Ewaldo Ward, where you can buy lots of jams and jellies for your breakfast and brunch delights in the future. On the 21st of February, it's the lowdown on downtown. And if you like the Donald Spivack interview, you like that inside baseball about how downtown LA got so freaking messed up.
Please don't use that word.
Do you hate the inside baseball thing? I know. You just you heard that term recently, and it really... Daniel Miller brought it up. It's fine. I won't say that. If you're interested in the inside secrets of the lore and the development and the policy changes, I'm not going to say that, of downtown Los Angeles, the lowdown on downtown, which is our tour which changes the most. We give it twice a year. It's always different. We got some special surprises coming on this one, too. You definitely want to get on that bus and off that bus because we do a lot of walking. We're wrapping up the month, though, with a true crime tour, Wild Wild West Side, on February 28th. It's basically a trip through my early childhood. So we're going to be in Venice and West LA, Santa Monica. We're going to be talking about all my favorite things: cults, child abuse, freaked out acid killers. Oh, it's so much fun. And, you know, a beautiful cemetery visit, of course, too, which I like to do on my crime bus tours. March the 7th, it's Weird West Adams, a tour of a beautiful neighborhood, a bunch of neighborhoods dissected by the 10 freeway, and the incredible history of crime and, yes, social justice that took place there. At the end of March, it is Pasadena Confidential with Crimebo the Clown, a tour about rocket science, black magic, and families run amok. And we'll take a nice little stroll out on Suicide Bridge in the company of Crimebo and talk about all the people who threw themselves off to their death. The end of March is a brand new tour, and it's mine. It's the other side of my childhood. It's called Hollywood with an exclamation point, and it is Bang in Terabang, and it is a true crime tour with some fantastic architecture and offbeat local lore. If you've ever wondered what people like us think about as we travel through one of the central tourist locations of Los Angeles, you want to get on this bus. We'll show you some things you probably didn't know about and some things that will haunt your dreams and captivate you too, because that's our job. And that brings us up to the end of March, and I will simply mention coming up in May is our once-a-year Tom Waits bus adventure, and I've been getting a lot of emails about that. Word is out. People are excited. David Smay is coming back from San Francisco to take us through Tom Waits' Lost L.A.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you for bringing us home. I want to thank everyone at home for listening. I want to encourage you to continue to listen, and I want to remind you,
you can't eat the sunshine.
You can't eat the sunshine, but you can make a beeline for the best of the coastline. La 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 la. Skid Row, Solano Canyon, the Doria, and Pico Union, the long-lost neighborhood called Hermina, between South Pass and Highland Park, Grand Central Park. It is divine. You can't eat the sunshine, but it's a gold mine of fabulous oddities like Bruce Harris Dairy, Angela Savvy, Bob's Big Boy, in Downey Forest Lawn Cemetery. You can't eat the sunshine, but make a beeline